recycling or refurbishing? Does that come into your frame?
In this novel in particular, I don't see a lot of recycling of material objects, but there is an interesting thread of recycling discursive trash, and I alluded to that in the presentation. But aesthetically, it's very interesting the way that it appears in the novel. So there will be one example I think of is a conversation that Jose, the main character, and the guy I mentioned toward the end of the novel, who ends up in Masquerade, Achila, that they're having. Achila says he's fallen in love with this woman, but he fell in love with I think she's a figure skater, and he fell in love with a cardboard cutout of her, and that sort of motivated him to go find her, and that became his girlfriend. And it was a throwaway cardboard cutout, so there's trash, physical trash there. But in their conversation, he says something, I don't remember exactly what it is, but uses some turn of phrase, and there's a footnote, and the narrative voice comes through in the footnote and says something like, this is obviously a poorly translated, comes from a poor translation of some kind of B movie or something like that. Nobody really speaks like this. And there are several instances in the novel where the narrative voice via footnotes foregrounds the fact that what's going on or what's being said is the recycling of this barrage of mainly North American cultural products that are really popular in Brazil at the time. And so there's this element of discursive recycling that the novel really foregrounds. And I think that, like you say, recycling is not a new thing. It's really, really old. And what's interesting is that a lot of cultural products are foregrounding the recycling in that kind of a way, calling explicit attention to it. And I think that's a fruitful technique and something that really demands investigation.
I think you can use Cristeva as well because it comes back. That's what I was thinking. It haunts you.
Yeah.
It's going to still be, coming towards you.
Sure. Thank you.
Hi, I'm not a Brazilianist at all, and so I'm kind of, I was spent some time in Brazil recently, and they call the favelas now comunidades. They don't want to use that term anymore. You know that. Okay, are the books that were banned, were they? Well, some of these books moved underground. I'm curious about what happened to banned books in Brazil. Do they have a life underneath?
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to answer with any degree of certainty, but I would imagine so. I think this novel was published originally in Italian first. He couldn't find a publisher, and it was published in Italian translation. Then a year later, in 1975, it was published in Brazil, and it was available for a year or so before the military banned it. So there were copies out there, and I'm imagining they were circulating, and then it was banned for about 5 years. When things lightened up a little bit in 1979, the censorship was lifted on the novel. But yes, I imagine that it was circulating, and that other banned books that had gotten out there at least a little bit were circulating, because I don't know to what lengths the military went to go to the bookstores and remove copies and really take them out of people's hands.
They could have independent presses, because you see that a lot in Latin America. That's kind of underground press movement, really popular right now. Yeah. I'm really curious about it.
One question for the first presenter of the World Cup. I read at some point before the World Cup started that probably the next elections are very close. Sunday. Yeah, this Sunday. That Dilma's re-election was kind of hanging on the performance of the Brazilian team. And if they won, she might won, but if they lost, she was lost. Do you get any sense of what's going to happen? What's your prediction based on your experience around?
Well, I'm not 100% sure whether she'll win again. There have been a lot of recent new candidates that have been some big names recently that I'm obviously now blanking on. But while I was there, I know I had a lot of people talk to me about how they had once supported Dilma, and then with all the decisions she was making about renovations of the World Cup, they lost a lot of faith in her that she would do something good for them after it was over. So I don't know if it was technically decided on whether they lost or whether they won or not, but I think it's about whether they were losing in the effort and what they were gaining. So yeah.
Just one comment that I was going to make about this is that obviously that assumption was wrong, and the polls were taken the day after the defeat to the German team. In the days subsequent to that, and it had very little bearing on the polls. And recently, it's shown its proving now that the assumption was not correct. That it would have an effect. Their numbers in the last few days are as a matter of fact, improved. So Alberto.
Yeah, just a quick question and then a comment or a pitch for something that's going on here. Favelas are not going to go away soon, and this idea of favelas as a place where everything goes wrong and the drugs and trash and all that. But there are also writers who are saying that there's actually where the action is happening, where there's a lot of efforts to rebuild sort of solidarity group and music and all that. So I wonder if you just have some comments on these two visions of favelas and maybe like a rereading of these types of novels. And just very quickly, don't miss the exhibit here in the School of Human Ecology, right here at Couple Buildings now. Laura Anderson Barbata, she's a designer who's going to be the artist in residence here in campus next semester. And she has a fantastic exhibit now. She used a lot of discarded elements and trash to build these designs for the skilled dancers. So don't miss it, just go there and enjoy the exhibit. But that's just a pitch.
Yeah, I definitely dove into a little bit in my paper about how the communities and the favelas are working together more to like start socially mobilizing, especially because they missed out on a lot of it over the years, and this, like I mentioned, was sort of a catalyst. And like I've talked about one in specific in my paper called Bairros da Paz, or the Peace neighborhood, and which it translates to. And one of the leaders that kind of rose up to occasion, he was a professor before, and then he kind of took on the role of organizing his community to fight against it. And he says, we are not interested in waving Brazilian flags or volunteering for the World Cup. We need jobs, we need education, we need land titles, we need healthcare. And it was actually pretty interesting. I think the largest participation in the protests against the World Cup were from members who came, or people who came out from the hills and the favelas and these communities in the hills. So, yeah.
I would certainly agree with the idea that this is potentially where the action is, and that there's a lot of rich cultural production, not only having to do with trash, but coming from marginalized sectors, working with those types of materials. And I'll rely a little bit on the fact that I'm not a Brazilianist, so it's hard for me to comment on those types of things that may be happening in Brazil, but a clear example that comes to mind in the wake of crisis would be the Cartonera movement, that a lot of us here are very familiar with that. And not only the Cartonera movement, but now also some of the writers that have been associated with it, like a guy like Washington Cucurto, who was the center of one of the first ones, Elisa in Buenos Aires. His whole aesthetic, even if he doesn't always publish with the Cartonera, or if he's not dealing directly with material refuse in his literary production, the aesthetic is heavily marked by a perspective that doesn't have a lot to do with the literary powers that we and so I do think that there's a potential for a real disruptive and fruitful literary production from the margins, associated very clearly with refuse and with figuring out how to recycle things and how to develop a of relationship ethically around material that's supposedly useless.
We are making violins out of from trash.
Yeah, yeah.
Whole orchestras. Whole orchestras now.
Yes, a whole orchestra and a whole gosh.
Right, Mary?
Yep.
Actually, I wanted to thank Mary Lou and Steve. I think they are the two members of the committee. Are there any more questions?
I give a comment. The Brazil Initiative is actually bringing someone to talk about favelas here in just a few weeks. So we'll have a talk by Teresa Williamson, who is the head of catalytic communities, and should be talking about favelas at the vanguard, rethinking our assumptions in sustainable development. So
When and where?
this will be Monday.
That's on the Brazil Initiative site.
Yeah. But
Under
Monday,
events.
October 27th, 12 to 2 in this room. But it'll be in Lassies and all over.
It'll be in Noticias de la Semana. It already is in the Brazil Initiative site under events.
And if there's food left, please. Exactly.
Maybe we'll get started. I know that there's some other folks that will still be coming, but they can kind of just sneak in as after we get started. So thanks so much for coming. My name is Sarah Ripp. I'm the Outreach Coordinator and Undergrad Advisor for the Latin American, Caribbean, and Iberian Studies program, and we're really pleased to have Juanita here today. She's traveled far from Nicaragua, and we have her on a very full schedule for the whole week. She's got all kinds of interesting events scheduled, classroom visits. Yesterday she was at Monona High School, also at Madison College. She's going to Edgewood College this week, several classroom visits here on campus, and then UW Eau Claire is hosting her next week. So hopefully we can give her a nice warm welcome. And I did want to mention that over on the table there, if you're not already on our listserv and you're interested in hearing about some of the other events we have, we do have a sign-in board if you want, or kind of a clipboard. You can put your name and email address. We send out a weekly email blast of kind of a collection of all events, kind of both on and off campus that have to do with our region. So it's a nice sort of clearinghouse of if you're interested in Latin America and the Caribbean and Spain and Portugal. We put that together once a week. We also have a lot of other events coming up this week in particular, so we have handouts about all of those. For example, tomorrow we're hosting a talk in 206 Ingram at 2 o'clock with a speaker from Mexico who's from a coffee co-op, and we are working with Just Coffee here in Madison. One of our alums is one of the founders of Just Coffee, and they're going to come and they're bringing Antonio to come and talk about the fair trade coffee business. So I will turn it over to Alberto, who's going to introduce Juanita and provide some translation. But please join me in welcoming Juanita. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah, and welcome everybody. I want to mention that this event is co-sponsored by several groups, as Sarah mentioned, but particularly the Human Rights Program here, that is a new initiative on campus that is calling attention to this topic, the Department of Gender and Women's Studies, and other organizations here in town like MATC and Edgewood College and the Dane County chapter of the United Nations. So it's joined forces with many to host Juanita. Juanita is a lawyer and activist, and she has been one of the leaders of the women's movement in Nicaragua. She worked with the Red de Mujeres contra la Violencia, the network of women network of women against violence, and also has been the executive director of the independent women's movement in Nicaragua. And she has years of experience in this topic. We're very happy that she's here with us. So I'm going to pass the table to Juanita. She's going to give the talk in Spanish. I'm going to translate, so you can sort of go and see after you speak something, I'll translate it. Okay, Juanita, thank you.
Gracias por participar en mi conferencia. Bueno, he preparado unas líneas para tratar de centrar algunas ideas alrededor de la situación de los derechos en mi país, particularmente los derechos de las mujeres.
Yeah, I have prepared some notes to talk about some lines and the situation of women in my country.
Pero siéntanse en la libertad después que hable sobre algunos aspectos que ustedes pueden preguntarme cualquier aspecto que consideren de interés.
But feel free to ask any questions as I give the presentation.
Bueno, Nicaragua ustedes saben, es uno de los está ubicada en Centroamérica y es el país que tiene de Centroamérica mayor extensión territorial.
Nicaragua is a country in Central America and it's the country with the largest territorial extension.
O sea, vivimos 6 millones de habitantes.
Yes.
De ellas, el 52% de la población somos mujeres.
It has 6 million inhabitants, 52% are women.
En los últimos 50 años hemos enfrentado distintas crisis políticas, económicas, hemos enfrentado desastres naturales y en la búsqueda de la libertad nos ha tocado transitar por distintos regímenes.
The country has faced in the last 50 years political crisis, economic crisis, natural disasters, and in the search for liberty and democracy, they have had to go through different...
Sí, hemos transitado por dictaduras, por revoluciones, guerras civiles.
They've gone through dictatorships, revolutions, civil wars.
Entonces, hablar del Estado democrático, de derechos para las mujeres y respeto de las libertades individuales podría decirse que son paradigmas de los siglos pasados. Pero en el caso de mi país, solo hablar de democracia todavía constituye un reto inalcanzable en el siglo XXI.
So to talk about the democratic state or rights for women and respect for individual liberties, we could say that these are paradigms of the last century. But in the case of Nicaragua, just to talk about democracy is still a challenge in the 21st century.
Las mujeres nicaragüenses no hemos sido espectadoras de todas estas crisis en mi país. Al contrario, hemos sido protagonistas y hemos sido agentes de cambio.
In this difficult journey, the Nicaraguan women have not been only spectators, but they have been protagonists and agents of change.
Durante la dictadura militar, las mujeres se integraron a las guerrillas, organizaron la población, hicieron acciones de resistencia en sus comunidades, lucharon con las armas junto a los hombres y al triunfo de la Revolución Popular Sandinista fueron las primeras en encabezar la gran cruzada de alfabetización que redujo la cifra de analfabetismo.
During the years of the military dictatorship of Somoza, the women joined the guerrillas, they organized the people, they had resistance actions in their communities, they fought with their arms together with the men, and at the triumph of the revolution, the popular Sandinista revolution, they were the first to head the alphabetization, the literacy campaign that reduced the illiteracy rate in Nicaragua.
La revolución en su proyecto libertario prometió en su programa la emancipación de la mujer. Sin embargo, el machismo enraizado en la cultura política nicaragüense negó la posibilidad de alcanzar mayores avances en materia de igualdad de género.
The libertarian project of the revolution promised the emancipation of women. However, the machismo, sort of rooted in the political culture of Nicaragua, denied the possibility to reach more successes and advances in the gender equality.
Sí, la elaboración de la nueva constitución política que fue en 1986 significó la mayor oportunidad de las mujeres organizadas para reivindicar y asegurar derechos. Se organizaron cabildos de consultas para incidir en las normativas constitucionales encaminadas a reconocer la igualdad de derechos y garantizar la vida libre de violencia y sin discriminación.
The new political constitution of 1986 meant more opportunities for women sort of organized to assure their rights, and they organized local consultative bodies to change the constitutional norms, heading toward recognizing gender equality and to guarantee life free of violence and discrimination.
Sí, esta nueva constitución permitió promover leyes y reformas importantes en materia de familia, tales como el divorcio por voluntad de una de los cónyuges, la creación de mecanismos para asegurar las pensiones alimenticias de los hijos y las hijas, y se reguló de manera más equitativa la crianza de los hijos y la tutela compartida entre hombres y mujeres.
The new constitution allowed laws and reforms that were important in matters of family, such as the divorce by common agreement of one of the members of the couple, the creation of mechanisms to assure food pensions for the children, and more equitative regulation of the raising of the children, and sharing tutela is custody.
Custodia, sí. El desarrollo del movimiento social de mujeres visibilizó las demandas de igualdad de derechos. Esto implicó muchos riesgos para el liderazgo político de las mujeres en el contexto de la revolución, y demandas que eran legítimas, como la despenalización del aborto y la sanción ejemplar de la violencia doméstica y sexual, fueron debates que implicaron persecución política a líderes, mujeres, y muchas de ellas fueron estigmatizadas como desviadas ideológicas, agentes del imperialismo norteamericano, o estigmatizadas como contrarrevolucionarias.
The development of the social movement among the women made visible the demands for equality in rights, but this also meant many risks for the political leadership of the revolution, and legitimate reivindications such as the decriminalization of abortion and the sort of punishment against domestic and sexual violence. And all these were debates that implied political persecution of the leaders, so that they were stigmatized as ideological or agents of the North American imperialism or counter-revolutionary.
Sí. La guerra civil contra la revolución, los autoritarismos y la falta de garantías para el ejercicio de la libertad, sumado a esto las consecuencias de la Guerra Fría entre Estados Unidos y Rusia, profundizaron la crisis interna y posteriormente la finalización del proceso de la revolución sandinista.
The civil war against the revolution, the authoritarianism and the lack of guarantees for the exercise of liberties, all these meant to the Cold War between the United States and Russia. They deepened the internal crisis and the final process of the Sandinista revolution.
En 1990 fue el voto mayoritariamente femenino el que pone fin a la guerra y abre el paso a un proceso de pacificación para restablecer el camino hacia la democracia. Fue el liderazgo de doña Violeta Barrios de Chamorro el que facilitó el cumplimiento de los acuerdos de paz y el inicio del proceso de fortalecimiento de la institucionalidad democrática.
In 1990, the vote, mostly from women, that's what ends the war and opens a pacification process to reestablish the road towards democracy. And thanks to the leadership of Violeta Barrios de Chamorro, that facilitated the agreed with the peace accords and opened the process of strengthening the democratic institutionalization.
Sí, en este periodo el movimiento de mujeres proclama su autonomía y reivindica una agenda propia demandando derechos para las mujeres.
in that period, the women's movement proclaims its autonomy and reivindicates an agenda, their own agenda, demanding rights for the women.
Entre 1992 y el año 2000 se logran reformas importantes para sancionar la violencia contra las mujeres. Se modifican delitos como la violación, el abuso sexual, la explotación sexual, el acoso sexual. Se establecen medidas de protección a víctimas.
Between 1992 and 2000, important reforms took place to go against the violence against women and codify some crimes such as rape, sexual abuse, sexual exploitation, sexual harassment, and they establish other measures of protection against the victims.
En el ámbito estatal se crea en la policía las comisarías de la mujer y la niñez como órganos especializados para la atención a víctimas de violencia de género. Se establecieron mecanismos de coordinación interinstitucionales para el diálogo y acciones conjuntas entre el Estado y las organizaciones de mujeres, mediante el cual se elaboró un plan nacional de lucha contra la violencia intrafamiliar y sexual que definieron políticas y normas de atención especializadas e intersectoriales y se crearon protocolos de atención para personal del sistema de justicia y de salud pública.
At the state level, it created the police, special police force for women and children as specialized entities for the attention of the victims of gender violence. They also established mechanisms of
People recycling or refurbishing, does that come into your frame?
In this novel in particular, I don't see a lot of recycling material objects, but there is an interesting thread of recycling discursive trash, and I alluded to that in the presentation, but aesthetically it's very interesting the way that it appears in the novel. So there will be, one example I think of is a conversation that Jose, the main character, and the guy I mentioned toward the end of the novel who ends up in the masquerade, Achila, that they're having. Achila says he's falling.
Were they, well, some of these books moved underground? I'm curious about what happened to banned books in Brazil. Do they have a life underneath?
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to answer with any degree of certainty, but I would imagine so. I think this novel was published originally in Italian first. He couldn't find a publisher, and it was published in Italian translation. Then a year later, in 1975, it was published in Brazil, and it was available for a year or so before the military banned it. So there were copies out there, and I'm imagining he fell in love with this woman, but he fell in love with I think she's a figure skater, and he fell in love with a cardboard cutout of her, and that sort of motivated him to go find her, and that became his girlfriend. And it was a throwaway cardboard cutout, so there's trash, physical trash there. But in their conversation, he says something, I don't remember exactly what it is, but he uses some turn of phrase, and there's a footnote, and the narrative voice comes through in the footnote and says something like, this is obviously a poorly translated, comes from a poor translation of some kind of B movie or something like that. Nobody really speaks like this, and attention to it. And I think that's a fruitful technique and something that really demands investigation.
I think you can use Cristeva as well because it comes back. That's how I was thinking. It haunts you.
Yeah.
It's going to still be, coming towards you.
Sure. Thank you.
Hi, I'm not a Brazilianist at all, and so I'm kind of, I spent some time in Brazil recently, and they call the favelas now comunidades. They don't want to use that term anymore, you know that. Okay, are the books that were banned?
There are several instances in the novel where the narrative voice, via footnotes, foregrounds the fact that what's going on or what's being said is the recycling of this barrage of mainly North American cultural products that are really popular in Brazil at the time. And so there's this element of discursive recycling that the novel really foregrounds. And I think that, like you say, recycling is not a new thing. It's really, really old. And or they're not paying for recycling, in that kind of a way, calling explicit